They laughed at her, an old woman, barefoot, hunched with age, standing alone in the middle of armed soldiers. The colonial officer smirked, thinking she was weak, thinking she was nothing. But then she raised her hand and whispered words that would shake them to their very bones. Her name was Mekatilili, Menza, and she was about to show them that courage does not bend to fear or to age. The people of Giriama had always whispered about her power. Some said she could call on spirits, others said her words carried curses that made men tremble. Today, even the bravest warriors among them couldn't hide their fear. Yet, when Mekatilili spoke, something strange happened. Hearts hardened with doubt began to beat with courage. "You will never take our land," she said, her voice steady and sharp. "You will never break our spirit, not while I'm alive." The soldiers laughed again. They thought it was just superstition, a frail old woman talking nonsense. But then the air seemed to shift. Crops they tried to burn refused to catch fire. Paths they had cleared to advance became tangled and confusing, and whispers, soft, urgent whispers, spread along the land. The old woman's spirit was everywhere, watching, waiting. Panic began to creep into their hearts. Plans were made to capture her, to chain her, to stop this impossible old woman once and for all. For Mekatilili, she had other plans that would not only challenge the soldiers' strength, but test their courage, their patience, and their very belief in what is possible. The stage was set. The battle for the Giriama had only just begun. They thought they had her cornered. Chains wrapped around her frail wrists, guards standing close, swords glittering in the morning sun. The colonial soldiers smirked. An old woman, defeated, that's what they thought. But Mekatilili, Menza, she smiled. A small knowing smile, and in that moment they realized they had underestimated her. Night fell, and with it came silence. The guard dozed off, confident, but Mekatilili had been planning this for days. She whispered instructions to the shadows, to the winds, to the very trees that lined the forest. The chains loosened in ways no one could explain. One guard stared, caught a glimpse, but it was too late. By dawn, she was gone. Not a sound, not a footprint, except one set, disappearing into the wild. The soldiers panicked. They tore through the prison, searching every corner, but she had vanished. And then the whispers began. Among the Giriama, stories spread of the old woman walking through locked doors, moving unseen, appearing where she was needed most. She had become more than a leader, she had become a legend. But the soldiers were restless. They would not rest. They would find her. They would stop her. Little did they know, Mekatilili had already begun gathering her people, teaching them, training them, and soon the forest would erupt with a secret army they could never have imagined. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The colonial soldiers moved cautiously, thinking they were walking into an empty wilderness. But Mekatilili Menza had already anticipated every step, every glance, every heartbeat. From the shadows, figures emerged, not men, but women, young and old, their eyes blazing with determination, armed with nothing but spears, sticks, and courage. They struck like lightning. The soldiers had never seen anything like it. Panic spread through their ranks. Mekatilili moved among them, guiding, shouting, pointing, her voice carrying over the chaos. Every strike, every movement seemed to flow from her mind as if the forest itself obeyed her. The soldiers tried to regroup, but confusion reigned. Orders were shouted, but no one could tell friend from foe. How could they? The Giriama women moved silently, quickly, vanishing and reappearing like shadows. And then it happened. From the highest tree, a signal whistle pierced the air. Suddenly, the women disappeared into the forest, only to strike again moments later from an entirely new direction. The soldiers' fear became terror. They realized that Mekatilili's army was everywhere, unseen, unstoppable, and fueled by the fire of someone they had once dismissed as just an old woman. But far in the distance, hidden from the chaos, a new threat was gathering, a force the Giriama had never faced before, and Mekatilili, she knew this battle had only just begun. The largest army the Giriama had ever faced stood at the edge of the forest, swords gleaming, muskets ready, hearts full of fear and anger, and there she was, Mekatilili Menza, an old woman, barefoot, standing tall, fearless, her eyes blazing like fire. The soldiers laughed at first. Surely they thought this frail old woman could not lead her people against us. But then the ground shook beneath their feet. The forest seemed to come alive. From every shadow, every hidden path, her warriors appeared. The Sugit army they had never seen struck from all sides. Mekatilili moved among them, a whirlwind of strategy and command. Each move was calculated, each strike precise. She whispered to the winds, and the trees seemed to bend in her favor. The soldiers, trained and armed, found themselves outsmarted at every turn. And just when it seemed the Giriama might be victorious, a new threat emerged. A regime the colonialists had hidden, stronger, larger, more ruthless than anything Mekatilili had ever faced before. Her people looked at her, their hope flickering, but not extinguished. Mekatilili took a deep breath, raised her hand and whispered another curse. Her voice carried across the battlefield, calm and deadly. The soldiers faltered. They had fought warriors, they had fought rebels, but never someone like her. The battle raged, the forest alive with cries of courage and fear. And in that moment, the world knew this old woman was no ordinary leader. She was a force of nature, a legend, a spark that would ignite the courage of generations to come. But even legends face uncertainty, and as the sun set over the battlefield, one question remained. What would become of Mekatilili or Menza next?